Hello, everybody. David Giles here, candidate for Maine House District 27, and we had an open house meet and greet here today, and we knew it was going to be tough, competing with the hunters, and but that's all right. We still had a few people show up. We had some good food, and needed a drink of coffee. Sorry about that. And I just got to talk to people, and that's really what I'm trying to do at this stage of the game. Anyways, is just getting people together and talking to each other, and kind of finding a common path and areas that we can work together on, and identifying things that we can address. So within that meeting, anyone that attended got a card, and on the back of it, we'll start with the back. Just says my name, and then husband, father, veteran, former teacher, and small business owner, proudly running to represent the people of House District 27. And then below that, it says what I believe about, and then below that in the red, it's public schools. The best performing schools are the ones that are locally controlled and are void of indoctrination. No more failed social experiments on our kids. EMS. When you call 911, you shouldn't have to wonder when or even if an ambulance will show up. And number three, taxes. Augusta's financial mismanagement has led to tax increase on top of tax increase. We need common sense leadership that puts Mainers first. On the front, it has my name. It has House District 27, has my email address, david@gilesformaine.com, has the 5 towns I'm representing, and then it has a QR code where it'll take you directly to my website, and then where you can see or keep up to date on the campaign, because it's not just a static website. There is a blog section on there where what I call the community engagement, and that's where I formulate my thoughts based on my own beliefs, my own history, my own life experience, and then that of along with what people tell me, so that we can kind of work together and come together on some consensus on the areas that Maine and central Maine, and rural Maine, I should say, should be progressing towards. And then on top of that, we spent some time talking about what I believe is a potential gold mine for Republicans in general, and what I am pushing an enormous effort into, and that is unenrolled voters. And so let me give you a little bit of history here. In Maine, the number of unenrolled voters is actually going down. It's actually lower now than it was about 15 years ago. 15 years ago, about 40% of Mainers were registered to vote but unenrolled. Now it's about just under 29% across the entire state of Maine. Now some towns and counties will be higher or lower, but on an average, about 29% of Mainers are now registered to vote but unenrolled. They're not associated with any political party. So what is different though is starting in 2024, unenrolled voters now have a say in the primaries. That's something they did not have before. So even though the percentage of voters is lower, they now have that ability or that leverage within the primaries, which is going to be critical, both in races for the party and then races in the general election down the road. And I hear my kids in there fighting. Never fails whenever I go on a video, but that's all right. We're gonna try to press forward. So I'm spending a lot of time drafting out a strategy to go after those voters, because now that they have the ability to vote in the primaries, in my opinion, is the most important, out of the two, between the primaries and the general, because the primary is the one that sets us up for that general election, and whoever we decide in that primary, it needs to be the cream of the crop, so to speak. So right now, voting for the primaries is generally quite a bit lower than the general. Most people wait till the general. I'm trying to kind of counter that, and try to get more people out in that primary season, because that is the one, in my opinion, that is the most crucial in ensuring that we have who we want to have lined up against the other parties when it comes to the general election in November. So anyone that was here got a handout, and we kind of walked through some of this. So, and it talks about the strategy that I am using as a campaign, when I'm going out and talking to people, because I've already identified a bunch of different people that are unenrolled who don't even know that they have the ability to vote in the primaries. And so, number one, that it's an education piece, because we want people participating in democracy. We want them out voting, and I believe in that so much that I, even if people don't want to vote for me, I still want them voting, right? Their participation in the process is far more important than me getting elected, because that is something that we really need to protect, and that is people's ability to vote and their willingness to vote. And so that this is all about education. There's nothing partisan in what we are doing here, when it comes to educating people. So the core message is, if you're not enrolled in a political party, you still have the right to vote in Maine's primary elections. You can choose one party's ballot and vote at that time without changing your registration status. So let's take a step back, and we'll talk a little bit more about these door hangers later. But what they are is again, it just kind of gives the voter the information that, and this is a verbatim right out of the Maine statute. It says a registered voter, and this is what got changed in 20 for the 2024 elections. A registered voter not enrolled in a political party may participate in a party's primary election without enrolling in that political party. An unenrolled voter may vote in only one party's primary election. So you have to pick. When you go into the primaries, you say, I want a Republican ballot, I want a Democrat ballot, I want a Green ballot, whatever. You can only do it one party, but you get to pick whichever one you want. And that kind of makes you, the unenrolled voter, kind of a kingmaker, right? You basically you have some really good leverage. Now we would love to have you in the Republican Party. Don't get me wrong, but for what it's worth, you guys are very valuable. Um, and then it goes on to talk about the Secretary of State shall establish procedures to ensure that each voter voting in the party's primary election is offered a ballot for the primary election. So, like I said, you get one party's ballot, you get to vote, and then during the general election, obviously everybody gets the same ballot. But that is what we're handing out as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. But the other thing that I wanted to make sure is that people keep the tone factual and free of partisan language, right? Like I said before, this is about getting people involved and protecting people's right to vote and encouraging their participation. It's not about, hey, you need to vote this particular way and blah 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 blah. I would rather, like I said, I would rather see the participation than the actual outcome of the election, because to me that's more important in the long run, right? Obviously, I want to get elected. Obviously, there are certain things that I want to see passed, but not at the cost of people not believing that they can participate. And then we want to keep the keep the focus on voter empowerment and civic participation. I'd love to see us get back to the point where we can all, talk in a civil manner without, and even when we disagree, we can do it in a way that doesn't go out of a way to make the other person seem like they're the spawn of Satan. you know we can disagree, and that's one of the beautiful things I love about the actual election days and the voting days, because we all come together, we all can stand in a line, right, left, you know Christian, whatever other religion, or non-religion, whatever, come together and participate in a process, and that is very important. So again, we want to keep it as a civic participation, and we just want them to believe that they are there, they have the influence, and then some of the talking points. And again, these are just basic talking points that we're giving people. Starting in 2024, Maine allows unenrolled voters to participate in one party's primary without enrolling. You'll remain an independent voter before and after the election, right? So you participating doesn't change your registration status. You're still unenrolled. You just chose which party to participate in. Okay, so primary elections, and again, this is something we're going to put a lot more emphasis on. Primary elections to me are as important or even more important than the general election because again, that's the one that sets you up. And sadly, participation rate is a lot lower in the primaries than they are in the general. They get a lot less publicity, and in I would like to see that change, but and that's what I'm going to work towards. And then it gives a stat of 28.8% of voters in Maine are unenrolled. And again, although that number is down, now with their ability to participate in primaries, which they did not have prior to 2024, they actually, in my opinion, they have a lot more leverage than they did even when their numbers were a lot higher. Let's see. The primary is your chance to help shape the choices you'll see in November. Okay, and then we go into a quick Q&A because some people will inevitably have questions. Do I have to join a party to vote in the primary? No, you can stay unenrolled, and you just pick whichever one you want. Can I vote in more than one party's primary? No, you have to pick only one. You can't vote in multiple primaries. Will my registration change if I vote in a primary? No, you will remain unenrolled unless you decide to change that enrollment. Uh, can can party members vote in another party's primary? And this is only if they change their registration 15 days prior to the primary election. So if you're a Republican and then you want to, for whatever reason, switch and vote in the Democratic primary, you have to unenroll 15 days prior. And vice versa, if you're a Democrat, you won't vote in the Republicans. But if you're an unenrolled, you just go in and say, I want a Democrat, I want a Republican ballot, and go that way. And the final question, which is probably, in my opinion, the most important one, does my primary vote really matter? Yes, absolutely. Primaries often determine who makes it to November, and in many races, they're decided by just a few thousand votes. So the best candidates that we choose in the primaries, we need to make sure that they are the cream of the crop and the ones that can weather the storm. Because when it comes to the general election, a lot of them are only decided by a handful of votes. So that primary is very, very important. And I'm not going to go through the rest of this, but there's a do's and don'ts. And actually, I will go through this one, but then I'll stop after that. The do's are speak calmly and confident about how the process works. So if we kind of train the trainer is what these meetings are kind of about, then those people that attend can go out and talk to other people in a confident manner. Emphasize voter choice and civic participation, not party politics. Okay, and I'm a Republican, and I would love to see the Republicans take control, but this is about getting people engaged, and this if we can do that in a civic fashion, then if and when we take power, either this coming election or whenever, we'll have that a little bit more of a civility about how we do things. Use everyday language and not jargon. And then encourage people to double check their registration before primary day. So make sure some people are, they're not as engaged as some of us are, and they're not sure if they're registered in a party or not. So, ask people to say, hey, before the voting comes up, make sure you go in and kind of check your registration, make sure it aligns with where you want to be. If you want to be enrolled in a political party, make sure that that is the case. But if you want to be unenrolled, make sure that is the case. So that when it goes to the actual voting process, there's less chance of a hiccups. And then as far as the don'ts, don't pressure anyone to support a specific party or candidate or policy. That's one thing that during election seasons, I kind of stop scrolling because it's just one thing after another, after another, after another. It's the same thing over and over and over again. With a lot of times it's very little information. It's just you know vote this way, and without giving anyone a reason why. But use the new law as a campaign pitch, right? That this is something we're using. We have it written on door hangers. We're going to be talking a lot. I've already, brought this information up to several people who are unenrolled who thought that they could not participate. And they're very thankful when you can bring it to them in an open civic fashion, even when they don't agree with you politically or ideologically. They appreciate a candid conversation. Um, and then don't automatically assume people understand the difference between the primaries and the general elections. Like I said, general elections get a lot more of the publicity. The primaries, Not so much. People don't participate in them as much, and I'd like to see that changed. But again, it comes down to educating and talking to people, and then don't argue if someone is skeptical. Provide the information and let them provide decide for themselves. And then after that, there's some myths, and then the facts, which kind of covers some of the same information, and then some of the outreach best practices, what I believe and what we believe, from talking to people and looking through things, that are some of the best practices. Start with the question. Do you know you can vote if you find out someone is an unenrolled voter? Ask them, hey, are you aware that you can vote in the primaries? And then lead that into the conversation, and then use relatable examples. Imagine deciding, what's on the menu before dinner, right? You get to decide. You don't have to wait until that course comes out. You can actually look at the menu and say, oh, I would rather have this. That's kind of what the primaries are. Um, and then offer resources, right? We have things like this where they can actually look up the law online if they want to double check this, fact check anything that I do. I'll always link it to an original source. I try to do that with everything because I don't want people to take my word for it. I want you to go out and research and make sure. So again, there's a few more things there, but we won't cover it. But it's all about empowering people and getting people to believe that their voice matters. They have a voice, and in kind of encouraging them to use that voice, right? And then go from there. Um, and like I said, we have these door knockers that went out with the people that attended today as well. We'll be handing these out. If you want any of this, reach out to me. I'll be putting these out and talking more and more. I'm not going to do a lot of door knocking until December. When I have to go and get signatures, and then there'll be a process that I go through in doing that. And then I have a calendar when it comes again, just dealing with unenrolled. I have a calendar of events of things that I'm going to be doing in a certain order as the primary election comes closer. So, 1 week it'll be this, the next week that, and the next week this, the next week that. Just trying to kind of keep things fresh instead of just same old thing over and over and over and over again. Which, I get sick of it, and I'm sure other people do as well. So I'm trying to do things a little bit different. So there we have it. Like I said, it was a great, great time today. I'm having a lot of fun building out this strategy. And, I say this a lot and I believe it. Get out and say hi to your neighbors, talk to each other. Whether you are of the same party or not, it doesn't matter. We're all in this together. Um, the only way that we're going to move forward as a society is if we come together and work together. Our founding fathers, everyone seems to think that they were cut from the same cloth. They were not. They argued vehemently about everything from the way our government should be structured all the way to religion. Everyone says that we're based on Christian faith and Christian morals. Well, to an extent, but if you go back and look at what each of those part founding fathers actually believed, they couldn't even agree on that. So, and I won't go too far into detail on that, but let's just say they didn't sit side by side in the same pew, in the same church. But anyway, so thanks again. I really appreciate the support that everyone's given me. Hope you all had a great time during Halloween. I know my kids did. And just if I can put a plug out, wow, over on the Garland Road light show, go on Facebook and check them out. That they put out an enormous, a wonderful display, and it gets garners a lot of attention. Online. They've got the Halloween one up now, and they're gonna move into their Christmas stuff. But great job out there, Steve. But anyways, if anyone has any information, I'd love for you to follow me, davidleegiles.com on my website, social media. You can find me there, and reach out to me. Tell me what you think, and what's some of the things that you're concerned about. And in the meantime, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you later. Oh, one more thing. We've got another live stream tomorrow, myself and Zach Wood. So if you have questions, concerns, something you want to talk about, a topic you want us to talk about, either reach out to myself or Zach. Or if you're in the Corinth area, we'll be at Dunkin' Donuts at 3 o'clock. Come on out. I'll buy you a cup of coffee. And other than that, we'll see you next time. Thanks.